is Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I'm here with
Jason from Shelf Stories.
And we're here to present you with another episode of Semper Ludimus. You want to translate it this time?
We always play.
Yeah, we do. So today we are here to review another game. This time we are going to be covering an earlier release from Blacklist Games, Street Masters. So this is Rise of the Kingdom, but there are a lot of expansions which I'll be showing you shortly. But Street Masters is basically like if Double Dragon had a love child with Sentinels of the Multiverse. Mm-hmm. And I will explain exactly what that means in the upcoming clip, where I'm going to show you the base game and a few of the expansions that are available for it.
Street Masters is a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players. And as we'll discuss in the opinion part of this video, most of my experience is playing with 1 or 2 of the characters in this game. There's a lot going on and there are a lot of tokens in Street Masters, but I am going to give you the most basic rundown that I can right now. So Street Masters, like basically every other game from the Sadler brothers that comes out from Blacklist, like Brook City or the upcoming Alter Quest, they all have the same system, which is called the modular deck system. If you've played Sentinels of the Multiverse, you are already somewhat familiar with this because you have the players, the enemy, and the environment. Street Masters works very much this way. For each game, you're going to have your hero or heroes. You're going to play one of the environments in the game, and then you're also going to have an enemy deck. And these 3 decks are going to be where your emergent game narrative comes from. There are a lot of different settings to choose from. They all have a little name down in the corner, so they're very easy to identify and match with decks. And I like this one because it's a ridiculous casino. Each boss and each environment are also going to have setup instructions that tell you exactly how to get started for the game. This isn't a full setup, but once you do get fully set up, all you need to do is follow the player aid card and do all the steps in order, and the game will work out just fine. So on each turn, you'll get to have fighter turns where you have a threat phase, and what that means is that you refresh each card in your own play area and then draw and resolve 1 enemy card. So there's always a new enemy coming out at the start of your turn. Then you get to take 3 actions in any order or combination of your choosing. Although you can't interrupt one of your actions with a different action, they have to be 3 completed actions in a row. You get a react phase where all of the cards that have been entering your threat area, so if these have been coming in during the threat phase and you're not getting rid of them, they hang out and come after you in the 3rd part of your turn. And then a draw phase where you draw one of your cards and flip this card over. So you're constantly taking new cards from your deck and replenishing a little bit each turn. Then will come the enemy turn. So basically every card that's in the enemy play area, so our buddy Dimitri here, who's the boss that I just pulled from the box, will have his own deck that he's working with, and cards will come out of it. So every card that he's already drawn during the game will activate at the start of his turn. We have to resolve all of that. And then the stage itself gets a turn where you activate all the cards that are in the stages area, draw and resolve a stage card, and then the end phase that you flip back over to the fighter phase. So structurally, the game is very straightforward. It's just the complexity that arises from that brings a lot of excitement and strategy to the game. One thing that's fun about the enemy stage and fighter decks is that every single one of them is a little bit different, so it really does feel like a different experience every time you play and in every combination that you play. Fighters are going to have special abilities and powers and card combinations that make them exciting to learn. Bosses are going to have card abilities and combinations and powers that make them difficult and present different types of challenges to you as the player, with of course the stage that you're in throwing a little bit of an extra wrench in the works. The other thing that makes Street Masters particularly interesting that I want to talk about is its combat system. So in the game, of course, you got to attack your enemies, and when you do that, you're going to roll these dice. So you have enemy dice, and you have your own player dice. Combat in the game is based around 3 different types of moves: kicking, punching, and grappling. And distinguishing between those plays into your strategy. Some of your own attacks are going to be specific types of damage dealt: kick, punch, or grapple. Same thing for an enemy. And throughout the game, both you and the enemy are going to be able to acquire defense tokens that help you defend against specific damage types. Various things can happen throughout the game that allow you to pick up one of these tokens, so grapple, punch, or kick, and you basically spend these at moments of your choosing during play. Enemies can build these up to make them harder to beat because you have to get rid of their defense tokens before you can chip away at their health. But when you block, not only does a successful defensive action take care of you in terms of preventing damage, but you can also flip the token to get a charge. If you get enough charges, then you basically charge your character all the way up. So let's say that Megan has a bunch of charges. She can become Charged Megan, and her special power improves, and she just basically becomes a better version of herself. So charging is a strategic element of the game that can be very satisfying. One of the other things that's kind of special about this game is that when you roll dice, you don't lose out entirely, even if you don't get what you want. So let's say that we just roll these dice. There are a few different possible results. This burst symbol is a hit. The shield symbol is basically defending, and when you do this, you don't do damage to the enemy you were attacking, but you do get to pick up one of the defense tokens that I just showed you. Some die faces allow you to both hit and defend yourself, and there's a very special burst side. This is essentially a critical hit where you get this hit and you can re-roll the die as many times as you can get away with. So that would have actually been 3 damage. 1 burst, roll again, get another one, roll again, get another. So theoretically, if you got enough of these burst results, you could just keep picking up damage against the enemy forever, which doesn't ever happen, but sometimes you really wish it would, especially if you get 2 in a row. When an enemy attacks, they use these white dice, whatever number is specified on their card, and you'll just get different die faces to indicate kicking, punching, or grappling damage. So those dice just randomize the kind of damage an enemy does to you and affect whether you might choose to use your defense tokens. Every game will play out with those basic elements, but things can get really exciting. For example, in this sudden death setting, you have challengers who are these other fighters who have come to show off what great fighters they are, but the boss of the round is going to be trying to kill them, and as you lose these weaker fighters in the round, it hurts you and advances your losing condition. At the same time, some of those fighters can help you out a little bit, even though they're not as strong as you are. There are a ton of other settings that do very different things thematically that are a lot of fun, and it's just really amazing what this game has been able to create from a few different settings, a few different boss decks, and a few different fighter decks. I should also note that in addition to just pick up and play, where you pick a boss, a fighter, and an environment, there are also little stories for each fighter and little mini campaigns that you can play within this game, both in the base box and in the expansions. So speaking of expansions, Street Masters has a lot of them, and each of them adds new fighters, new stories, new enemies, and basically a lot more fun, as well as a whole lot more plastic because this is Blacklist. There are minis for everything. So among the expansions, there are some gameplay expansions that aren't standalone, but they're pretty significant, such as Twin Tiger or Legend of Oni. Essence of Evil would also fall into that category. Additionally, there are also some big box standalone expansions. The biggest box of all would of course be Aftershock, which is absolutely enormous. Watch your Calax. Wow. There's a lot of extra gameplay in here. So if you like Street Masters, Aftershock is like a whole other giant box of more excitement. So that one has new fighters, new stages, new factions, new loot, everything that you could possibly dream of. Also fun are a couple of smaller expansion decks called the Redemption decks that actually allow you to play the enemies, your bosses in the game, as players. So if you've ever wanted to be Dimitri instead of fight Dimitri, then guess what? You have your chance with the Redemption deck. And there are 2 sets of these that have come out as expansions for Street Masters. So there's just an endless amount of stuff to do with this game. And now you can hear Jason and me give our opinions about it.
So after that little overview of the game, let's talk about how we feel about it. How do you feel about Street Masters, Jason?
Okay, so how I feel about Street Masters entirely depends on who I'm playing and how many players are at the table. If I'm playing with 1 or 2 players, I feel great about Street Masters. If I'm playing with 3 or 4 players, I feel horrible about Street Masters.
So I'm almost
horrible too strong a word. Horrible might be too strong a word.
Okay.
But what I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, maybe horrible's a little strong, but let's be real. So you saw the small little tactical board that I did that I showed for the top-down viewers. So I normally play this game solo. I like to play it with 1 or 2 characters, just depending on how much upkeep I feel like dealing with and whether I want some combos. So 1 or 2 as an experience is great. I would say the double dragon influence should be taken very seriously, because more than 2 and that tight board starts to feel real tight. 2 is company, 3 and 4 is a crowd.
It's a crowd on the board, and it's also a crowd in your player area. A lot of cards get spit out. And as a solo player, it's interesting how, like, when you're playing in that low player count, you're much more tolerant of AP, of admin and overhead, of all those things that can kind of like take you away from your decision space. So like, 'cause, you know, your decision space is in figuring out all that kind of stuff. When you're in a multiplayer, then, you know, you're doing more admin than actually playing, because you're admin and you're waiting for everybody else to do their thing. Right. So just, I mean, because everything has text. Everything has text. You have your personal player power, your decks, text. You have your stage deck, text, and you have to check that. That's a separate phase, read. And then the enemies, and I think that this is where the game kind of like really frustrates me, even as a solo player, but like definitely multiplayer. The enemies have text. Everybody has text. If you stand next to this guy, he's going to grab you. If you're 5 feet away or 5 hexes away from that gal, she's going to shoot you. And it's like, I have to keep track of all that. And they talk about tracking in games. Sentinels in the Multiverse has tracking. This game has tracking.
Right. But I do want to say that from that tracking emerges a narrative and an experience that can be sublimely great, depending on how things come together. So, you know, all of that text and all of that imaginative energy, you know, the Sadler brothers are so thematically engaged with their games, and they really want you to feel the setting that they've created for you and the conflict with the specific enemy that they've created for you. You know, every character plays differently. Every enemy is different. Every setting is different. The campaign has really fun scenarios. And, you know, from this brew, this primordial mix of game elements, right? You know, you can get these incredible experiences, some of which are extremely challenging and memorable. And, you know, magic can happen from all of that bookkeeping,
right? But
you have to do the bookkeeping.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're playing Street Masters, and there's a lot of Blacklist games at this point, when you're playing Street Masters, the thing that you're getting here is that punch, kick, fight, slide across the table 5 steps, and then, you know, like, you know, kick the person 3 times, take the chair and put the chair, you know, you're getting all of that fightery stuff. It's probably the most impactful of the Blacklist games, like, you know, like that, because I played a bunch of them just kind of leading up to this review, and like, what's the difference between these games? Because they're all MDS, they're all like kind of a modular deck. This one really is different because, like, you know, I can boom, boom, boom every single turn, and so I think as a solo player, you need the crunch in order to really fill that in, because, like, you know, because the person grabs, you have to play this other card that gets you out of grab, turns you around, gets into their flank, and you can, you know, punch them in the kidney. So, like, I needed that bit of admin to fill in the imagination piece, which is what I kind of gave it an I am. You know, I need to visualize it, or else it's not going to happen. So I see where the admin like kind of leads to decisions and leads to imagination immersion that you wouldn't get if it was just like, okay, block of wood, you know, like a blank card with hit points. So I get where that's coming from. And as a solo player, if you're willing to kind of overcome that admin barrier, there's so much in terms of that impactful. I feel awesome. I've killed 7 dudes in 1 turn because of my combos and this, and this. You get that in this game. Absolutely.
Yeah, like, this is the sort of game that you'll have memories of. Do you remember the time I punched that guy in the throat, and then I picked up this chair and I hit him over the head, and then I broke the cryogenic freezer, and then you know what I mean? It's like, you know, you have this whole set of memories from playing the game. That said, that much text and that much imaginative space does also come with the consequence of there are a lot of gray areas in the rules. And how do I choose to resolve this play? If you're willing to just be like, well, I'm going to do what I want to do and have a good time, which I completely am at this point in my gaming life, it doesn't bother you. But if you like to have a rule that tells you everything that you should do, and you want to be very sure that you played it exactly right, I do think that there can be a little bit of frustration.
The FAQ for this game is long. If you go on the Blacklist website, I mean, because you have the Street Master, and you have like 3 expansions that came in the first cycle, and then you have the Aftershock, like big box, and then 3 expansion cycles on top of Aftershock. It's all Street Masters, and it was all made within like a couple of years. We're not talking about a product that has grown organically over 5, 7, 10 years, where
Right.
each cycle is like tested and, you know, clean. Like they really just like I think they were just really enthusiastic, and they just like piled a bunch of design in there. So there's another thing. Like with the admin comes these corner cases, and that might really frustrate you.
Yeah, it's like you're getting to experience this explosive burst of creativity that the Sadler brothers had, and it's amazing, and it's also sometimes flawed. The one thing I do want to talk about though too is the dice, because this is something the Sadler brothers tend to do in their games that I really like, which is I like that there's no such thing as a totally bad roll. If your roll fails, then you know the way that Street Masters works, right? Is, you know, there are different types of attacks. You know, you can block, you can punch, you can kick, you can grapple, and you know, if things don't work out with the die rolls that you need, then you can take tokens to use later and get what you do need on a future turn. So there's never anything totally wasted, and I actually like that, because there's nothing I hate more than a die roll that's all or nothing, and you get nothing, and it's like, well, am I gonna do the solo cheat, or am I gonna joke?
No one's watching. Cock dice.
But no, this game gives you the things that you need going forward, even if you don't get what you need on a specific turn, as long as you keep your cool and keep playing, which I really like.
Right. And it's not huggies either. Like, you know, towards the end, you are going to want successes. Like if you are kind of lining up like, I'm going to take this boss down, you can't just like be happy with a bunch of block tokens and a bunch, like it does give you that excitement of, you know, it does kind of all come down to the dice roll, but it doesn't string that along the entire game where you have these pits of frustration. It's kind of like just there to give you, make sure you're in resources, but when it really counts, and if people are looking for that excitement of like the dice roll where it comes down to, you definitely get that too, because there are better things to get. You want to get hits in this game. Like I said, that's what you're doing in this game. Pow, pow, pow. You know, you want to make sure you got that too. So it does a good job of balancing the two, the things that people want from dice.
Yeah, it helps you keep the excitement of rolling dice without the extreme disappointment of rolling bad dice.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to say about this one? Any other points you want to bring up?
I'm good.
All right, so I think that means it's rating time. And so I will just disclose, I initially had this game at more of a 9, but given how much has come out over time and how much I'm actually playing it, you know, Jason and I have talked about it, and we've agreed that it would be an 8 for a Dice Tower seal of approval. This is a fantastic game. I think that there is even better Sadler Brother material to come. Alter Quest.
You gotta get that checked out. Stop spitting out names of random games with your coughs. That's a.
But how else will I communicate my feelings? Can I be blunt? No, sure. But no, this is an amazing game. It's just also got issues that make it a little bit less than a perfect game.
And that rating is specific for solo and for 2 players.
Yes.
This is a solo design that was scaled up to 4, and it shows. There are other products that do like higher player counts a lot better.
Yes. So 1 to 2 and 8. Above that, at your own risk. You've been warned.
No, but we like it. We really do.
We love it. Yeah. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully we'll bring you another episode of Simp Bear Ludimus in the near future. And happy gaming.
Later, everybody.